Hey guys, we are here in the Meypel Heights City Department with Tom from Shoreway Realty Group, and we have Zach here who is going to present and introduce his role with the city. And what we want to talk with you today is really to provide you more information about working with the cities, and specifically within the Meypel Heights cities, how we are working with the POS, what are the requirements before, or what is the process before we purchase a property, with the assumption process, and then how we should work with the city on the ongoing phases to really benefit and create the alignment of expectation to benefit all parties, and that's what we want to achieve in this video together. So, Zach, really thank you very much for the collaboration and willing to share some information about how this process works. And maybe we can start a bit about you, if you can shortly share about you and about your role in the city, maybe specifically related to the point of sale and city-related processes for the rental properties.
Absolutely. So again, my name is Brendan Zach. I am the housing manager for the city of Meypel Heights. So I oversee all code enforcement, point of sale, rentals. Pretty much if it happens to the house, it falls on my desk, is how I always describe it. But, for point of sales and rentals, we do require inspections before properties can transfer, before a tenant moves in. And we do this to ensure the quality of our housing stock, to protect housing values and make sure that everyone is living in a safe environment. So our point of sale process is very, very easy. The seller purchases the point of sale, does an inspection. And if they don't fix every violation before transfer, we require escrow to be set up. And to do that, you would submit an estimate for each violation open, submit that to us, we'll double check it with an amount for each violation. After we agree on an amount, we'll just need a hold letter from a title company, and then the buyer would purchase an occupancy license. And that is the document that we give to title companies to transfer title.
Okay, so now we are talking about the process that we can call the POS assumption, right? Mm-hmm. So in this POS assumption, you're basically describing a process that it can be resolved with the buyer buying the properties with a commitment to rectify and correct the violation after he purchased the property, correct?
Absolutely.
So the things that are important for a buyer to take into account, and that's very important working with the city, that you need to do this up front before you close on the property. Otherwise, if you close on the property, it should have been done by the seller, but when you do the POS assumption, you basically, or the buyer takes the commitment to do it, and you highlighted, I think, important things that the landlord, the investor should take into account. One is the escrow account, the escrow money, or it's like escrow funds to put with the city, and secondly, he needs to have the budget to correct the items and then get back his funds, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, we have had issues previously where someone buys a property, they don't check with us, they don't see if there's a violation, what they're fixing, and they didn't realize that they were going to need to put 40 grand in that house right away. Right. When, we want to make sure that we're collaborative with every single person that wants to invest in the city. We're very happy to have the investment. Our home prices are skyrocketing, and we're very, very happy with what we're seeing. We want to make sure that we're being a good partner, but we also need investors to give that back to us.
Yes, and I think what we want to highlight for investors that working with the cities, you want to make sure you segregate between what is your total investment amount and what is your total cash committed for the deal. So you need to account for escrow funds, and on top of that, the amount to re-up, so you get after the re-up your cash committed from the escrow funds back, and that's important.
You hire us in Cleveland, Shoreway Group through NEAR, and this is what a point of sale looks like, where there's violations on it. NEAR is aware of it. We then put the amount that it takes to cure, which Brendan was just talking about. We submit it to Brendan, Sonia, who's at the front, who's excellent. That's the relationship Brendan's talking about. He looks it over, makes sure that it's a reasonable number for the item that needs to be done. He then sends his inspectors back. They re-inspect it, they cure it, they say everything's good, you're clear. We pass that back to NEAR, gives it to you, the owner, or he says something else needs to be done. We do it until it's all clear. money gets released, comes back to you, the owner.
Yes, and that relates really to the planning. Thank you, Tom, for the planning phase. Like before we close on the property, for you as an investor, for the buyer to know, okay, this is going to be my all investment cost. We can really plan it before we close on the property to align the expectation and in coordination with the city to say, okay, that seems to us reasonable. Let's proceed.
And I will share with you, Brendan's been so kind. We don't work in specific cities because we can't get good relationships with them. They make it too difficult. They want too much money. They're not reasonable in some of the violations that they want done. So when we choose our cities, it's the relationship we have with Maple Heights, with Euclid, with any of these other cities that we're all working for the common good, which is a good property that's safe, and we can get it fixed up, leased, and everybody wins.
And that's a mutual interest eventually for a landlord to have a safe, and Brandon, you said it, like to have a safe environment for the tenant. It's a mutual interest, overall a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. Another set of eyes, even besides the home inspection, even besides my inspection, it's another set of eyes, third party. We have no relationship with them as far as financial association. These are all separate entities. Public cities.
Right. So what do you think is important to highlight next? Okay, so we got the POS process done, we are aligned, we have the clear to go to close on the property. What are the other important steps when we talk about now addressing, like we took a commitment for the POS, now the buyer, the investor, needs to follow on through this commitment, obviously through us. We are facilitating all of that for the buyer in coordination with the city. Can you share a bit about the dynamics and the process to address the violations?
Yeah, once you have ownership, once we have ownership, we then, my thrust is to get my workers engaged. First things we do like to address are the city violations. We like to get those taken care of. We'd like to get the city back out, re-inspected. They give an all clear, and then generally we move forward with the rest of the scope of work, which is cosmetic for the most part, in order to get the best leasing and the best product, the best asset. And that's all behind the scenes. That's my responsibility. And again, working with Brendan and Sonia and the folks here at Maple Heights, the timeline gets shortened a lot more when we all have a common goal. And if I can get them done, depending what the list is, this one just happens to be, under a page, and they're easy, quite frankly. But the idea is to move past that, get your money back, finish my scope, get it marketed, get it producing income. I know that's a broad scope, but that's what it is.
What would be your complementary highlights for landlords working in the city in terms of the execution of the POS commitment, and also explaining the city governance to make sure that this commitment is being followed through?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I always want to remind people is that we're not waiting for your neighbor to complain about something when we're doing this. We're not waiting for your neighbor to decide that they hate you and they're going to call the city every single day until it's fixed.
Good point.
We want to be proactive. We want to make sure that, people, my inspectors drive by on the street, but we're not seeing behind the houses every single day. If your roof in the back is messed up, we either have to wait for the point of sale or your neighbor to complain. And I'd rather do it through a point of sale rental when we can control a little bit more and we don't have another party involved who is putting pressure on potentially your contractors or your tenants to get this fixed.
Right.
We can control this, we can get it done before anyone has a problem.
Right.
So that's the number one thing. I mean, for the point of sales, for any documents that you give to us, if you give it to us on the counter, we give it back to you within 5 minutes. If you mail something in, 2 to 3 day turnaround time.
Yeah.
We are very, very responsive to people because we understand that we're not going to hold up title transfer. If you work with us, we'll work with you. We'll get you through as fast as you want to get through.
Yeah, that's very important.
And I'll say that, and it's really important because with COVID, we're just coming out of COVID, these offices just reopened. Our challenge is, how do we get this paperwork to Maple Heights in a timely manner and communicate? Because emails can go 2, 3, 4 days. Phone calls can get returned. I'm busy, they're busy, and so they worked with us very nicely. Drop off documents in the front. They take it back in. They process it. They get it back to us. We pay them. Their fees are quite reasonable for the overage of what they do in the city to keep the values and keep the properties in good shape.
And I think for investors that are working, and I'm talking also about international investors, this is a phenomenon that we see more and more, and it's important. Having some kind of boots on the ground, working like with a local entity that has the relationship and the know-how with the city can facilitate a lot on the background, and also it's a value for the investor buyer in reducing timelines, complications, misunderstanding, actually coming here, and this is why we are here today, to end out the POS assumptions. So being here physically, obviously through the COVID, but also as a principle, I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. The city does require local property managers, because I can't tell you how many times we have an investor from across the world who doesn't know that there's a problem with the house until they get that court notification.
Great point.
So to have someone local looking over your property, making sure that we are all working in sync, makes my job so much easier, makes your job so much easier, and make sure that the investor isn't, being brought into court for, property across the world.
Exactly.
And that's what we want to do here. I think the mutual interest, and that's also not like in between the local property management only in the city, but also for the investor and the international investor, not working with, let's say, some kind of boots on the ground or local property management, meaning you are buying a risk, and this risk can be now responding to an escalated situation that could have been mitigated or worked in sync in the best practice and the existing process guidelines, which is what we want to educate, obviously, you through this video today. And that's great. Thank you, really, for helping with that.
And we want to be as transparent. Our job here at Shoreway, as a relationship with the process, with us, with NEAR, is hopefully you won't have to hear about it. If there's something going on, we're hired to take care of it, and it should be seamless. Now, that's not always the case, but for the most part, we try to handle as much as possible without you having to worry about it.
Let's talk about the output of the process to address the POS violation, and basically it ends like with the inspection and then the release. So can you provide like your highlights and how does it work, this step of the process to say, okay, we are checking the work and we are releasing the violation. How does it work, and what should investor be aware and take into account about this step in the process?
Well, let me, if I may, the front line is when we identify a property, the first thing I want to know is there an outstanding, has there been a city inspection done? Is there a POS report of violations, or is it all clear? Once that helps us to vet out the property to continue in the process. Do we like the way it's going? No. Property's off the table. We like the way it's going. I've seen the city report. I've visited the property now. I know in addition to the report, what we want to do, NEAR says the math works. We're going to like the income we can get. I then take the POS report with the packet that they give me. I fill it out, like Brendan says. I then hand it over to them. They do their due diligence, if that's what you're asking me. And they pick up the ball at that point. They come back to me, say, Tom, we're good with your number. No, any changes? We work through that. It works pretty smoothly, pretty quick, again, behind the scenes. And that's when you see a scope of work. On the scope of work, you'll see POS, and then any violations are listed as a separate column.
What would be, if I turn it to you, right?
Yeah, please.
Let's say you get now to the city, you get like some kind of a notification. Hey, we've addressed the violations. Please do the inspection. Can you walk us through like how the city is responding to that in terms of the process, timelines, activity? What happens from the city perspective?
Absolutely. So any buyer would get 6 months from date of transfer to fix violations and have those re-inspected. We do offer extensions if needed, but 6 months is our standard. So so let's say there's $5,000 in escrow.
Yeah.
Your contractor or whoever comes in and does $2,500 worth of that work. We'll do a partial release if you ask us after it's re-inspected for that $2,500.
That's important.
And then you'll get that money back, and we'll hold the other $2,500 until everything's fixed, re-inspected, and done. And after that re-inspection is done, you're good, you're done until a new tenant moves in, and then we get into our rental process.
Right.
Point of sale will be done, and that's the last you need to worry about the escrow for that property.
And with the rental process, property management at Shoreway works with Maple Heights.
This is something we can touch base as a separate process because I want to talk about, let's say, this ongoing process. But in terms of the POS process, are there any other tips or highlights or things that are important that you would like to convey before we go to the next process?
You assign your inspector. He comes out, re-inspects it, comes back, does what he does, and says you're all good to go.
What are the requirements for the inspection day itself? Like someone needs to be there with the inspector? How does it work, this city inspection?
So, we do suggest that someone is on site with the inspection. We do only require exterior inspections for the point of sale. So we do ask that someone's on site just to make sure there's no confusion. On the report we say, concrete block number 4 needs to be replaced. Now, what does concrete block 4 mean? I want to make sure we're not confused. So if someone's on site, it makes everyone's life easier. But, we'll come out, we'll do that inspection. We will get that report to you at latest by the next day.
Yeah.
That'll come out, you'll know exactly what's going on. After that inspection is done, you fix things, get it re-inspected, we mark them off, you'll have the report again next day. We move as fast as you let us move.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's really what I wanted to hear from you and highlight, and that's I can share from our experience. Sometimes there can be misalignment that is just caused because of misunderstanding. Like, what is block number 4?
Exactly.
What is this violation code really means? So what we are actually doing, and that's an experience, we already know because of working so much time with the city. So what might be not clear to, let's say, a beginner investor or someone who doesn't understand, we already have the experience and it saves the time. And we still do as a best practice, and that's what I want to highlight and suggest, actually follow this recommendation to have someone on site with the inspector, and sometimes it can save a lot of redundant time and efforts for you, and obviously for the city, for everyone, to do that. So thanks for highlighting.
And this is a perfect example. Their report, replace second block from corner of house at East 146. Permit, meaning when you do cement, you need to pull a permit here and tell them exactly what you're doing. I draw their attention to the point of sale so they know that I'm working on that specific item. They have to come out. Let's say we tear out the cement. We have to call an inspector out. He has to say, yes, you're ready to good. You're ready to go. Next thing you know, we get the cement poured. They come out, they clear it. But the point is, I work with cities that'll say, make sure all cement on the public sidewalk, the driveway, the service walk, the patio. And next thing you know, I'm scratching my head going, is it 2 blocks or is it 12 blocks? And you know what the difference is at $500 a block? It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And if we get the wrong ones and they come out and say, no, you missed that one and that one, it's your money. So working with cities will tell you what they want. Very important.
Right.